My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the windowsill. The cold glass pressed against my forehead as I stared into what used to be my safe haven, my home, my life. Everything I thought I knew was crumbling right before my eyes. There they were. Kevin, my husband of 3 years, the man who promised to love and protect me until death do us part. And my mother, Patricia, the woman who raised me, who taught me about trust and family values. They were wrapped around each other on our living room couch like teenagers, her fingers running through his hair, his hands places they should never be. But it wasn't just the betrayal of seeing them together that made my stomach twist into knots. It was what I heard next that made my blood turn to ice. "We can't wait any longer," my mother whispered, her voice carrying through the slightly open window. "She wasn't supposed to come home today. The hospital said she'd be there until tomorrow." Kevin pulled back from her, his face serious. "I know, but we can work with this. She's still weak from the accident. Her injuries are perfect cover." "The insurance money will solve everything," Patricia continued, and I watched her trace circles on Kevin's chest. $500,000, Kevin. We can start fresh somewhere new, just like we planned." My legs gave out. I slumped against the side of the house, my broken ribs screaming in pain. But the physical hurt was nothing compared to what was happening inside my chest. Insurance money? What were they talking about? "I still can't believe the brakes failed so perfectly," Kevin said with a laugh that made my skin crawl. "When I cut those lines, I wasn't sure it would work exactly like we needed." The world stopped spinning. Cut the brake lines? My accident 3 days ago, the one that nearly killed me, the one that left me with broken ribs, a concussion, and internal bleeding. It wasn't an accident at all. They tried to murder me, my own husband, my own mother. I pressed my hand over my mouth to stop the sob that wanted to escape. The pain medication was wearing off, and every breath felt like knives in my chest, but I couldn't move. I couldn't look away. I had to hear more. "What if she remembers something?" Patricia asked, worry creeping into her voice. "What if she gets suspicious?" "She won't," Kevin said confidently. "Natalie trusts everyone, especially us. She's always been too naive for her own good. Besides, even if she did suspect something, who would believe her? Her loving husband and devoted mother trying to kill her? It sounds crazy." They both laughed, and the sound cut through me like broken glass. "We just need to be more careful this time," Kevin continued. "Make it look like complications from her injuries. Maybe she fell down the stairs because she was still dizzy from the concussion. Or maybe her internal bleeding got worse." "When?" Patricia asked. "Tonight, while she's sleeping. The pain medication will make her drowsy anyway. It'll be quick and painless." I couldn't breathe. They were planning to kill me tonight. In my own home. While I slept, trusting them to keep me safe. Everything made sense now. Kevin insisting I take his car that day because mine was making strange noises. The way he'd been so calm when the hospital called about my accident. How he'd encouraged me to increase my life insurance policy just 6 months ago, saying it was responsible planning for our future. And my mother, always asking about my finances, my insurance, my will. I thought she was just being protective after Dad left. I thought she cared about my security. But they'd been planning this together, planning my death, planning to cash in on my life and run away together. I heard footsteps inside the house, getting closer to the front door. Panic shot through me like electricity. If they found me here, if they knew I'd heard everything, they wouldn't wait until tonight. They'd kill me right now. The morning had started so differently. I remember lying in that narrow hospital bed, watching the sunlight stream through the sterile white curtains, feeling grateful to be alive. My whole body ached, but I was healing. Or so I thought. Dr. Williams had knocked on my door around 8 in the morning, looking tired and slightly embarrassed. He was a kind man in his 50s with gentle eyes that always made me feel safe. But that morning, something was off about his expression. "Natalie, I have some unexpected news," he said, pulling up the plastic chair beside my bed. We're going to discharge you today instead of tomorrow." I blinked in surprise. "Today? But yesterday you said I needed another full day of observation because of my head injury." He sighed and rubbed his forehead. "I know, and I apologize. There's been a mix-up with your insurance authorization, and we have a critical patient who needs this bed immediately. Your latest scans look good, and your vital signs have been stable for 24 hours. Part of me felt excited. I missed my own bed, my own shower, Kevin's cooking. The hospital food was terrible, and I hadn't slept well with nurses checking on me every few hours. But another part of me felt nervous about leaving the safety of medical supervision. "Are you sure I'm ready?" I asked, touching the tender spot on my head where I'd hit the dashboard. "Your concussion symptoms have improved significantly," Dr. Williams assured me. "Just take it easy for the next few days. No driving, no heavy lifting, and if you experience any dizziness, nausea, or severe headaches, come back immediately." He handed me a stack of discharge papers and medication instructions, pain pills for my ribs, anti-inflammatory drugs for the swelling, and strict orders to rest. I felt like a fragile piece of glass that might shatter if handled too roughly. After Dr. Williams left, I called Kevin's phone, excited to surprise him with the good news. It rang and rang before going to voicemail. That was strange. Kevin always answered when I called, especially since the accident. He'd been so worried about me visiting every day, bringing flowers and my favorite magazines. I tried calling again. Still no answer. Maybe he was at work and couldn't hear his phone over the construction noise. Kevin worked for a small building company, and the job sites could be incredibly loud. I decided to take a taxi home and surprise him when he got back. The nurse helped me get dressed in the clothes Kevin had brought me. Soft sweatpants and a loose t-shirt that wouldn't press against my bandaged ribs. Every movement sent sharp pains through my torso, reminding me how close I'd come to dying in that crash. The taxi ride home felt surreal. I watched familiar streets pass by through the window, thinking about how different everything looked now. 3 days ago, I'd driven down these same roads, completely unaware that my life was about to change forever. Now I was returning home broken and vulnerable, but grateful to be breathing. I thought about Kevin, and how relieved he'd be to see me home early. We'd been planning a quiet celebration for our 3rd wedding anniversary next month. Nothing fancy. Just dinner at the little Italian restaurant where we had our first date. Kevin had been saving up for something special, though he wouldn't tell me what. The driver helped me out of the taxi and even carried my small bag of hospital belongings to the front door. I tipped him extra for his kindness. As he drove away, I stood on our front porch, fishing through my purse for my house keys. That's when I saw it. My mother's silver Honda parked across the street, partially hidden behind the neighbor's large oak tree. My heart lifted with warmth. Patricia must have come to check on the house while I was in the hospital, or maybe she was planning to surprise me with a home-cooked meal when I got back tomorrow. But something felt odd. Why was her car parked so far from our house? And why hadn't Kevin mentioned that she was coming over? I unlocked the front door as quietly as possible, planning to surprise them both. Maybe they were planning something special for my homecoming. The thought made me smile despite the pain in my ribs. I had no idea I was walking into a nightmare. I met Kevin on a rainy Tuesday morning in October, 3.5 years ago. I was managing the little coffee shop downtown, the one with mismatched chairs and local artwork covering every wall. He walked in soaking wet, shaking raindrops from his dark hair, and flashed me the most genuine smile I'd ever seen. "Rough morning?" I asked, handing him a towel from behind the counter. "Getting better by the minute," he said, and something in his voice made my cheeks warm. Kevin became a regular customer, always ordering the same thing: large black coffee and a blueberry muffin. He'd sit at the corner table by the window, sometimes reading, sometimes just watching people walk by. After 2 weeks of friendly small talk, he finally asked me out. Our first date was magical. He took me to a small Italian restaurant where the owner knew everyone's name and the pasta was made fresh daily. Kevin was charming and funny, asking thoughtful questions about my dreams and goals. He listened when I talked about wanting to go back to school for nursing, about my complicated relationship with my mother, about how lonely I'd felt since my father left. Your dad just walked out? Kevin asked, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. One day he was there, the next, he was gone, I explained, trying to keep the hurt out of my voice. Mom said he found someone younger and decided he didn't want the responsibility of a family anymore. Kevin's eyes filled with sympathy. That must have been devastating for both of you. It was. My mother, Patricia, had been bitter and angry for months after Dad left. She'd always been protective of me, but after the divorce, she became almost obsessive about my safety and my choices. When I first brought Kevin home to meet her, she was cold and suspicious. He's too smooth, she warned me after Kevin left that first dinner. Men like that always have hidden agendas, Natalie. Trust me, I learned that lesson the hard way with your father. But Kevin was patient with her criticism. He kept showing up, kept being kind and respectful, even when Patricia made cutting remarks about his job or his background. Slowly, something changed. Maybe it was the way he fixed her leaky kitchen faucet without being asked, or how he always brought her flowers along with mine. Maybe it was how he listened to her stories about the old days and never seemed bored. You know what, Natalie? Patricia said to me about 6 months into our relationship. I think I was wrong about Kevin. He's good for you. He's stable, reliable, not like your father. I was so happy that the two most important people in my life were finally getting along. Kevin started visiting Patricia on his own, helping her with household repairs and yard work. He said it made him feel useful, and since his own parents had died in a car accident when he was young, he enjoyed having a mother figure again. Your mom's been through a lot, he'd tell me after spending an afternoon fixing her back steps or cleaning her gutters. She just wants to protect you. I respect that. Looking back now, I can see the signs I missed. The way Kevin always seemed to know exactly what to say to make Patricia trust him. How he gradually started asking detailed questions about my work schedule, my finances, my insurance policies. He'd frame it as caring about our future together. We should make sure we're both properly covered, he'd said just 6 months ago, pulling out life insurance brochures. What if something happened to one of us? We need to protect each other. I'd been touched by his thoughtfulness. We increased both our policies to $500,000 each. Kevin said it was responsible planning for young couples. And Patricia, she'd started having money for things she couldn't afford before. New clothes, a fresh paint job on her house, a newer car. When I asked about it, she said she'd been saving carefully and had made some good investments. Your mother's smarter than people give her credit for, Kevin would say admiringly. I thought I was so lucky to have found a man who loved my family as much as he loved me. I thought I was living a fairy tale. I never imagined I was the victim in their perfectly planned horror story. Standing there in the shadows of my own home, my mind raced through every detail of that terrible morning 3 days ago. The morning that was supposed to be my last. I remembered waking up early because Kevin had an important job site meeting. He was already dressed, sitting on the edge of our bed looking unusually tense. Take my truck today, he'd said suddenly, jingling his keys. Your car's been making that weird grinding noise again. I'd protested. It's fine, Kevin. The mechanic said it was just normal wear and tear. Please, Nat. I'll worry about you all day if you're driving that thing. His voice had been so sincere, so concerned. Besides, my truck sits higher. You'll be safer in it. Safer. The word felt like poison in my mouth now. I'd kissed him goodbye, grateful for such a caring husband. He'd held me a little longer than usual, his arms tight around me like he was memorizing the feeling. At the time, I thought it was sweet. Now I realized he was saying goodbye forever. The drive to work had been normal at first. Kevin's truck handled differently than my car. Heavier, more powerful. I'd taken the scenic route through the hills because I had extra time and the autumn leaves were beautiful. That's when it happened. I was coming down Maple Hill Road, the steep winding street that led into downtown. I pressed the brake pedal to slow down for the sharp curve ahead. Nothing happened. I pressed harder. Still nothing. Panic shot through me as the truck picked up speed. I pumped the brakes frantically, but the pedal went straight to the floor with no resistance. The steering wheel shook in my hands as I fought to control the vehicle. "Help me, please help me," I'd whispered, tears streaming down my face as trees and guardrails blurred past. I'd managed to swerve into a ditch instead of hitting the concrete barrier head-on. The truck rolled twice before slamming into an old oak tree. The last thing I remembered was the sound of breaking glass and the taste of blood in my mouth. When I woke up in the hospital, Kevin was there holding my hand, his eyes red from crying. "Thank God you're alive," he'd whispered, kissing my forehead. "When I got the call, I thought I'd lost you forever." The police officer who came to take my statement said it looked like brake failure. "These things happen with older vehicles," Officer Martinez had explained. "The brake lines can corrode over time, especially in trucks that see a lot of work use." Kevin had nodded sadly. "I should have had them checked more recently. This is all my fault." I'd squeezed his hand, trying to comfort him. "It's not your fault, honey. It was just an accident." But now, crouched outside my own house, I knew the truth. Kevin had cut those brake lines. He'd sent me to my death in his truck, probably thinking the crash would be so severe that no one would look too closely at the cause. And my mother. She'd been in on it from the beginning. I remembered how Patricia had visited me every day in the hospital, bringing homemade soup and magazines. She'd seemed genuinely worried, holding my hand and telling me how scared she'd been when Kevin called her about the accident. "I can't lose you too," she'd said, tears in her eyes. "You're all I have left in this world." What a performance. What a perfect, heartbreaking performance. I thought about all the times over the past year when Kevin had asked seemingly innocent questions about my insurance policies, my will, my savings account. How he'd encouraged me to list him as the sole beneficiary on everything. "We're married now," he'd said. "We should make things simple for each other." And Patricia had supported every decision. "Kevin's right, honey. You need to protect each other. That's what married couples do." They'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. Building trust, gathering information, setting up the perfect murder. The only thing they hadn't planned for was me surviving, and now they were inside my house, planning to finish what they'd started. I forced myself to move closer to the window, even though every instinct screamed at me to run. I had to know the full extent of their betrayal. I had to understand just how deep this conspiracy went. Crouching beneath the living room window, I could hear their voices more clearly now. My mother was pacing back and forth, her heels clicking against our hardwood floors that Kevin and I had saved for months to afford. "We should have done this differently from the start," Patricia was saying, her voice sharp with frustration. "The car accident was too risky, too many variables." Kevin pulled her back down onto the couch, his hands roaming over her body in a way that made me sick. It would have worked perfectly if she'd died like she was supposed to. Clean, simple, accidental. No one questions brake failure in an old truck. "But she didn't die, Kevin." Patricia's voice rose. "And now she's home early, and we're scrambling like amateurs." "Calm down," Kevin said, stroking her hair. "We've been planning this for over a year. We're not amateurs." A year. They'd been plotting my murder for an entire year while I cooked Kevin dinner every night and called my mother every Sunday to check on her. "Tell me again about the documents," Kevin said. "Are you sure they'll hold up?" Patricia smiled, and the expression on her face was nothing like the loving mother I thought I knew. "I've been practicing Natalie's signature for months. The new will is perfect. Everything goes to you as her husband. The insurance company won't question it." My blood turned to ice. "What new will?" "And the bank accounts?" Kevin asked. "I've been slowly moving money around, making it look like she was consolidating her finances. When she dies, you'll have access to everything immediately." Patricia laughed, a cold sound that I'd never heard from her before. She trusted me with all her passwords and account information, said it was for emergencies. I remembered that conversation. 6 months ago, Patricia had convinced me to write down all my important information, just in case something happened. She'd said it was responsible planning, especially after what happened with my father leaving so suddenly. "You're so smart, baby," Kevin murmured, kissing Patricia's neck. "I knew you were the right partner for this." Partner? I thought I was going to be sick. How long have they been together? I still can't believe how easy it was to fool her, Patricia continued. Poor little Natalie, so desperate for love and approval. When you started paying attention to me acting like the son I never had, she was so happy that we were getting along. Kevin chuckled. She practically threw us together. Remember when she asked me to help you move that furniture? Or when she suggested I check on you during that storm? She made it so simple, Patricia agreed. And the way she talked about you, about how much she loved you, how she'd do anything for you, it was almost too easy to manipulate. I pressed my hand over my mouth to muffle a sob. Every kind gesture, every family dinner, every moment I'd thought we were building something beautiful together. It had all been a lie. The best part, Patricia said, settling back into Kevin's arms, is that everyone will feel so sorry for you. The grieving widower who lost his young wife in a tragic accident and then again to complications from her injuries. You'll have so much sympathy, so much support. And you'll be there to comfort me, Kevin said, his voice sickeningly sweet. The devoted mother-in-law helping her son-in-law through his grief. We'll wait a respectable amount of time before we're seen together publicly, Patricia said. Maybe a year. Then we'll move somewhere new, start fresh with our money. Our money, my life insurance, my savings, everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built, they were planning to steal it all. What about tonight? Kevin asked. How do we make it look natural? Patricia's voice dropped to a whisper, but I could still hear every chilling word. The stairs. She's weak, dizzy from the concussion. She gets up in the middle of the night, maybe to get water or use the bathroom. She falls down the stairs and breaks her neck. And we were both asleep, heard nothing until morning. Kevin finished. They had it all planned out. My death, their alibis, their future together. But they'd made one crucial mistake. I was still alive, and now I knew everything. My heart hammered against my broken ribs as I carefully backed away from the window. Every step sent waves of pain through my body, but adrenaline kept me moving. I had to get evidence before they realized I was home. I slipped around to the back of the house, using the spare key we kept hidden under the fake rock by the garden. The back door opened silently. Kevin had oiled the hinges just last week. At the time, I'd thought he was being helpful. Now I wondered if he'd been planning ahead, making sure he could move through the house without waking me on the night he planned to kill me. I could hear their voices continuing in the living room as I crept up the back stairs to our bedroom. My hands shook as I grabbed Kevin's phone from the nightstand where he always left it charging. He was careless with it around me because he thought I'd never have reason to look. The phone wasn't locked. Kevin had always said he had nothing to hide from me. Another lie in a mountain of lies. I scrolled through his text messages, and what I found made my stomach drop. Months and months of messages between Kevin and my mother, going back 14 months. The early ones were flirtatious, talking about meeting for coffee when I was at work. Then they became more intimate, more explicit. But it was the recent messages that made my blood freeze. Patricia, 2 weeks ago. Insurance policy confirmed. $500K payout to spouse. Clean and simple. Kevin. Brake lines will be easy. Trucks old enough that corrosion will be believable. Patricia. What if she survives? Kevin. She won't. That hill is steep enough. But if somehow she does, we finish it in the hospital. Complications happen all the time. Patricia. 3 days ago. It didn't work. She's alive. Kevin. I know. We stick to plan B, home accident. Stairs. Patricia. This morning. She's coming home today instead of tomorrow. We need to move fast. Kevin. Tonight then. Can't wait any longer. I screenshot every message, my fingers trembling as I worked. Then I found something even worse. Photos. Pictures of our house that Patricia had taken, showing the steep staircase, the hard tile floor at the bottom. Pictures of my medical records that someone had photographed at the hospital. Pictures of insurance documents. They'd been planning this down to every detail. I heard footsteps on the main floor and froze. Were they coming upstairs? I quickly forwarded the most damning messages to my own phone, then put Kevin's phone back exactly where I'd found it. Moving as quietly as possible, I went to our closet and pulled out the small fireproof box where we kept important documents. Inside, I found papers I'd never seen before. A will with my forged signature leaving everything to Kevin, bank transfer forms I'd never signed, and insurance beneficiary changes I'd never authorized. My mother's handwriting practice sheets were there too, pages and pages of her trying to perfect my signature. The sight of it made me feel sick. How many hours had she spent learning to write my name so she could steal my life? I took photos of everything with my phone, then carefully put the documents back. I had to make them think I suspected nothing. That's when I heard Kevin's voice getting closer. I should go check on the bedroom, make sure everything's ready for tonight, he was saying. Panic shot through me. If he found me here, if he realized I knew everything, they wouldn't wait until tonight. They'd kill me right now and figure out a new story later. I looked around desperately for somewhere to hide, but our bedroom was too small, too open. The footsteps were on the stairs now. I could hear Patricia following behind him. The fall needs to look natural, she was saying. Head trauma consistent with tumbling downstairs. I had seconds before they reached the top. Without thinking, I slipped out onto the small balcony off our bedroom and pressed myself against the wall beside the door. The October air was cold against my skin, and I had to bite my lip to keep from crying out as the wind hit my injuries. Through the glass door, I watched Kevin enter our bedroom. He was looking around carefully, checking the layout, probably planning exactly how to stage my accident. But then he stopped, his head tilted slightly like he was listening for something. "Did you hear that?" he called to Patricia. My heart stopped. Had I made a noise? Had he seen something out of place? "What?" Patricia's voice was getting closer. I thought I heard something outside. Kevin moved toward the balcony door, and I knew I was out of time. But just as his hand reached for the handle, the sound of sirens filled the air. Multiple police cars were racing down our street, their red and blue lights flashing through the bedroom windows. I had called 911 from my neighbor Mrs. Chen's house 20 minutes earlier after I'd gathered enough evidence. I'd told her I was locked out and needed to use her phone for an emergency. The sweet elderly woman had let me in without question, and I'd quickly called the police, sending them the photos and screenshots from my phone. What the hell? Kevin spun away from the balcony door as the sirens got louder. Patricia rushed into the bedroom, her face pale. "Kevin, there are police cars outside, multiple cars." Through the glass, I watched them both panic. Kevin grabbed his phone and started deleting messages frantically, while Patricia ran to the closet where they'd hidden the forged documents. "We need to get rid of everything," Patricia said, her voice high with fear. "If they're here about something else, we can't let them find any of this." But it was too late. I heard the front door burst open downstairs, followed by heavy footsteps and authoritative voices. "Police! Search warrant!" Kevin and Patricia looked at each other in terror. They'd been so focused on planning my murder that they'd never considered they might get caught. "This is about the insurance investigation," Kevin said suddenly, his face going white. "They must have flagged the brake failure." "How could they know?" Patricia whispered. "Because I'm still alive to tell them," I said, stepping through the balcony door. They both spun around, and the looks on their faces would have been comical if the situation weren't so horrifying. Kevin's mouth fell open, and Patricia actually stumbled backward. "Natalie," Kevin stammered, "what are you doing here? You're supposed to be in the hospital." "I was released early," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Lucky for me, unlucky for you." Patricia tried to recover first, putting on her concerned mother act. "Sweetheart, you look terrible. You should be resting." What are you doing out on the balcony? Listening to you plan my murder, I said simply. The color drained from both their faces. I heard everything, I continued. The brake lines, the forged will, the insurance money, your affair, all of it. Kevin took a step toward me, and for a moment I saw something dangerous flash in his eyes. But before he could move, Officer Martinez appeared in the bedroom doorway with 2 other officers. Kevin Walsh and Patricia Morrison, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, insurance fraud, and forgery. What followed was a blur of handcuffs, Miranda rights, and Patricia screaming that it was all Kevin's idea, that he'd manipulated her. Kevin, meanwhile, tried to claim I was delusional from my head injury. But the evidence was overwhelming. The text messages, the forged documents, the forensic analysis of my brake lines that the police had already begun. Officer Martinez later told me they'd been investigating a pattern of suspicious insurance claims in the area, and Kevin's name had come up in their database. Your husband made one crucial mistake, Officer Martinez explained as we watched them load Kevin and Patricia into separate police cars. He used his own truck for the murder attempt. When we examined the brake lines, we found fresh cut marks that were clearly deliberate. No corrosion, no wear and tear. Someone had sabotaged that vehicle. The trial lasted 3 months. Kevin and Patricia both tried to blame each other, but the evidence was too strong. Text messages, forged documents, witness testimony about their suspicious behavior, and the physical evidence from the truck all painted a clear picture of premeditated murder. They were each sentenced to 25 years in prison. I sold the house and moved across the country to start fresh. With the help of a therapist, I slowly began to heal from the betrayal. The hardest part wasn't the physical injuries. Those healed within months. It was learning to trust again, learning that not everyone who claimed to love me was planning to destroy me. But I survived. And sometimes, that's the greatest victory of all. I never saw Kevin or Patricia again after the sentencing. I heard through my lawyer that they blamed each other until the very end, their partnership in evil dissolving into mutual hatred. As for me, I learned that sometimes the people closest to us can be the most dangerous. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I ever imagined, and that the truth, no matter how painful, will always set you free.